If you're looking to buy or sell a property in Lake County with a septic system, especially in the wintertime, this video is for you. So in Lake County, a lot of properties outside the city of Leadville have septic systems, and they do add another layer of difficulty, we'll say, when you go to sell the property. So I've done a video on this before, which you can check out, but I'm going to do a recap here. There have been a few changes, but the process overall has been the same. However, if you're selling in the wintertime, there are some considerations that you really have to take into account. So if you're thinking about selling a property with a septic system, the most important thing is to be proactive. If you know you're going to list your property, be aware that there's a transfer of title process that you'll have to go through with the county. So I'm going to show you really quickly the basic steps of what to do in a hopefully normal situation where you have a functioning septic system. So first thing here, if we can figure out how to share a screen. Share, here we go. Okay. Here's the Lake County website. So what you're going to want to do is go to lakecountyco.gov. Then you're going to want to look in the departments and go to environmental health. We click on that. If we scroll down a little bit, we have on-site wastewater treatment systems. So click on that. All about septic system permitting. And this very top one here, we talk about transfer of title acceptance document page. We want to go there. So the first thing you're going to do if you're a seller is apply for a transfer of title with Lake County. You can do that by clicking here to start the form. They're going to charge you $50 plus an $11 administration fee, so $61, but you can pay it, submit it all directly online without going to any offices. So if you go to this form, you'll see there's some basic information you're going to fill out. Your name, address, property information, owner. If we have, if you're working with a real estate agent, if we have a buyer's agent already, a title company, you just answer these questions to the best of your ability. Has the fee on here, and then you can just go ahead and click through this, get it submitted. So once the county gets that, they'll start the file for you. And meanwhile, your next steps will be to schedule a septic inspection, transfer of title inspection with a licensed uh, septic inspector in Lake County. So the county has an approved list of inspectors. It used to be on this website. You may have to contact the county to get it. If you have a real estate agent, we can always help you find someone to inspect your septic system. It has to be inspected by someone who's approved to do the transfer of title inspections. Also, don't get the system pumped out or anything until you apply and get a transfer of title inspection scheduled. Otherwise, you'll end up having to do it twice. When they do the transfer of title inspection, they're going to come out to your property, pump the tank, look at the tank, the leach field, all the parts of the system to make sure that it's good. So, and then the inspector is going to take that paperwork, submit it to the county. The county will review it, and they will issue a final approved transfer of title application. Best case scenario, everything's good, no issues. They'll have a report for you. It'll be signed off on the bottom, final. You get that. That has to be provided to the buyers in a transaction. Like I said, it's nice to get this up front so you know if there's any repairs that are going to be required by the county. And a lot of lenders, especially for FHA and VA loans, are going to require this. And this will suffice for something if the lender says we need a letter, stating that the system's operational. Boom, here's a fully approved inspection report for you. Sometimes conventional also needs that, but regardless, you're going to want to get this document to the buyer's agent. So now what happens if there's issues that are found with the system? Well, if there's issues, those are going to be outlined on the report that you get back from the county. And sometimes they'll just highlight some um, facts about the system. Hey, you don't have, baffles in the system. Or, worst case, they're going to say this system isn't in compliance with local or with current standards, and the whole system needs to be replaced. In which case, you're going to have to get a new set of plans from a licensed septic engineer and then get bids for a new system. So those typically, from what I've seen in Lake County, if you have to replace the entire system, that can run $30,000 to $50,000 on average. So it's not trivial. And these systems are only designed to last about maybe 40 years. And a lot of systems are original systems. The transfer of title process has only been in place now for a few years. So prior to this, it was not a requirement. The county is trying to make sure that any of these septic systems that are out there today are functioning correctly and aren't posing any kind of threats to environmental health. So your system's failed. You want to get in front of this. Once again, it's good to be proactive. If you get this done before you go under contract, you're going to want to go out. You're going to want to uh, get bids. I would say get a minimum of 3 bids from septic contractors. Uh, so either you can go ahead and replace this before you sell it, or you may be able to sell the property and escrow funds from closing for the buyer to replace it later. That gets a little more complicated, but it is an option. So if there are problems and you're not going to take care of things before closing, let's go back once again to the county website here. Maybe. Here we go. So let's get out of here. So over here on the right, this related documents tab, we have a conditional repair agreement. So here's an agreement that you can have notarized saying basically, we, the buyers, want to buy this property. We know there's some problems with it, but hey, we want to go ahead and purchase it anyway. It's saying that the purchaser to agree to pay for a repair permit within 90 days after the closing date, and failure to complete repairs could result in enforcement actions against you. So if you have bids, you know what the costs are going to be for the repairs. That's going to be especially important if the buyers have a lender. So if your goal is to sell this, not do the repairs yourself, have buyers do it after closing, so you don't have to come out of pocket. Maybe you don't have the funds. Maybe you've got plenty of equity in the house. When you sell the house, you're going to get a big check. If the buyer's getting a loan, we can basically, as long as you have a letter of some type from an inspector, according to lenders I've spoken with, if a septic inspector writes a letter for you and says, hey, the system is currently functioning, but it needs these repairs, and especially with winter weather, maybe it can't be done until spring. Um, but the system will be good until then. That will usually be good for a lender. So typically what's going to happen is you're going to need to have some kind of escrow agreement with the title company. A lender is usually going to require you have 3 bids, like we talked about. They'll look at those, maybe take the middle bid amount and say that, okay, Mr. Seller, you're going to need to escrow 1.5 times the amount of this bid at closing so that the repairs can be completed when they're able to. So for instance, if the new septic system was going to cost, $30,000, you had bids for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. 30 is the middle bid. $30,000, 1.5 times that would be $45,000. So the title company would draft an escrow agreement saying, we're going to withhold $45,000 from the sale, from the proceeds to the seller, so that this system can be repaired. Meanwhile, the bid gets accepted, and the contractor, once they're able to, after closing, gets to work on it. They complete the work. The title company pays out of the escrowed funds for the contractor, and then any funds that are left over, because hopefully there's plenty of leftover funds. If we're escrowing $45,000 for $30,000 in work, that remainder would go back to the seller. So that would be one way to go ahead and get a property closed, even though it needs uh, repairs. Okay. So, what about winter? So, winter presents some unique problems up here in Lake County. So, as soon as we have snow on the ground covering the soil treatment area, the leach field, they won't do a transfer of title inspection anymore. So, usually that means maybe as early as November, um, up through, potentially as late as maybe May, depending on where the properties are. They will not do a transfer of title inspection. So that's the majority of the year. So how do you sell a property with a septic system in the winter months? Well, number one, you still have to go online or go to the county building department. You have to apply for the transfer of title. So you're going to fill out the application just like you would. Now, what they've done is the county has said, hey, we get it. You can't do this inspection, even though we require it. So they provided another option. Um, Here we go. We're going to share the screen again. Okay, let's go back to, maybe we won't go back to, here we go. So back here on the right side of this screen that we were on before, the web page, they have a conditional inspection agreement. So this is really similar to the conditional repair agreement, except in a nutshell, what this document is saying is we, the purchasers, want to buy this property, and we realize that it's wintertime. We can't do a transfer of title inspection on the septic system. We want to buy it anyway. Uh, what we're agreeing to do as buyers is that within 180 days after closing, or as soon as possible due to the weather, we're going to go ahead and get the system inspected and then apply for a repair permit, complete any repairs that are needed, up to including possibly replacement. And you acknowledge that if you don't comply with that, you could be subject to enforcement actions. So, in the eyes of the county, this is a way that you can transfer your property in the winter. But keep in mind, most buyers are going to be getting a loan for the property. If you're getting a loan for the property, if you might be cutting it close, you might not have a lot of funds after closing. So that's a definite concern. So, in theory, you may be able to fill out this form. It's not necessarily part of the contract. A lender is not going to necessarily say, hey, I need this, this conditional use permit agreement form. They probably won't know anything about it. So in theory, you might be able to close a deal as a buyer by completing this form, and it's on you to get this inspected in the spring. However, you are taking quite a risk when you do that, just not knowing if you're going to be hit by some big expenses. Also, as I mentioned earlier, especially if you're getting an FHA or a VA loan, lender is going to require you uh, most all the time to have some kind of letter. Since we're not going through the full inspection process, we're still going to need some kind of letter from an inspector saying this system works as it should right now. If they've got that, they're probably going to be able to close the loan. All right. And having that conditional inspection agreement also fulfills all the seller's requirements for the transfer of title. That form has to be notarized. So the buyers need to sign it in front of a notary, get it back to the seller. The seller will submit that to the county. The county will then send the final transfer of title approval, but that agreement is in place, so the buyers are going to be responsible for getting everything inspected and repaired if necessary in the spring. It may make sense sometimes more than others to go ahead and do this if you're a buyer. If you're dealing with newer construction and if the system is only a few years old, it's much less of a risk than if you're talking about a 40 or 50-year-old system, which in my experience, probably 9 times out of 10, if not more, is going to need to be fully replaced. So that's something to keep in mind if you're a buyer. You know, really think about what you're doing, what you're agreeing to, and making sure you're going to be able to get what your lender needs as well. If you're a seller, you make the process so much easier if you go ahead and get this transfer of title application done in the summer or fall months, so that this isn't a concern. If the inspectors can get in there, identify any problems, you're going to be a lot better off just knowing what everybody's getting into, and hopefully everything's fine. You get it pumped and inspected, you get a letter back from the county saying you're good to go. Go ahead and sell the property. But just keep in mind, you know, as soon as you have repair issues or replacement, this can create a lot of complications. This is one reason I always recommend to use really local experts on everything with your home sale, but especially a real estate agent that is familiar with the area. We see real estate agents coming in from out of market who have no experience with septic systems, who don't know the process, and are not able to give you any guidance on it. So I always recommend use a local agent in your marketplace, wherever that is. Of course, in Lake County, I'd love to work with you. I've sold several properties with septic systems, so feel free to call me if you have questions. I'm happy to try to answer them as best as I can. Uh, I think that's about all I have here for this update. So just keep in mind where the county website is, and the process that you really need to go through there, and give me a call if you have questions. But other than that, I hope this video has been helpful, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the mountains.